Spring has always been my favorite season. After months of cold gray skies, the world finally wakes up. Flowers bloom, the air smells fresh, and everything feels alive again. That's why, one weekend in late March, I agreed to join some friends for a simple picnic by the river that cuts through our town. It was supposed to be harmless fun, a lazy Saturday with sandwiches, music, and laughter. I never expected it to become the most terrifying day of my life. We met around noon. The grass was green and damp from the previous night's rain, and the river shimmered under the pale sun. There were 6 of us: me, my best friend Sarah, her boyfriend Josh, a guy named Kevin I barely knew, and 2 others, Emily and her younger brother Ben. Everyone was cheerful, laying out blankets, setting up food, and joking about how cold the water still looked. I remember thinking how peaceful it felt, like the world had finally shaken off winter and was giving us a fresh start. But peace has a way of hiding danger. Around 2 o'clock, Sarah suggested we explore the old walking trail that curved deeper into the woods. She said wildflowers were already blooming there, and we could take pictures. Most of us agreed, so we left the blankets and baskets behind, figuring we'd only be gone half an hour. The trail was narrow, the earth still muddy in spots, but the flowers were beautiful. Pale pink blossoms clung to branches, and little clusters of white flowers grew along the ground. The deeper we walked, the quieter it got. The sound of the river faded until all we could hear was our own footsteps and the occasional bird. That's when Emily noticed it, the smell. At first I thought it was just damp earth, maybe the remains of some dead animal hidden in the brush. But the farther we walked, the stronger it became, a sharp metallic odor that made the back of my throat burn. Sarah wrinkled her nose and said it smelled like blood. We all laughed nervously, brushing it off, but none of us wanted to admit how unsettling it was. Kevin was the first to point out the old shack. It stood maybe 20 yards off the trail, half hidden by trees. The wood was dark and warped, the roof sagging in the middle. I don't know why we didn't just turn back right then, but something about it drew us in. Maybe curiosity, maybe the arrogance of being young and thinking nothing bad could happen. Let's check it out, Josh said, already moving toward it. I wanted to argue, but no one else seemed to hesitate, so I followed. The closer we got, the worse the smell became. My stomach twisted, and I had to breathe through my mouth. The shack's door hung crookedly on rusted hinges, and when Kevin shoved it open, a wave of stench rolled out so thick it made Sarah gag. Inside, the light barely reached. The only window was smeared with grime, letting in just enough sun to reveal what was inside. At first I thought it was garbage, piles of dark, soggy cloth. But then my eyes adjusted. They weren't cloth, they were animals, dozens of them. Rabbits, birds, even what looked like a fox. Their bodies were arranged in messy heaps, some fresh, some reduced to little more than bones and fur. Flies buzzed in the air, and the floor was sticky with something I refused to identify. Emily screamed. Josh swore under his breath, backing up so fast he nearly tripped. Ben whispered, "What the hell is this?" But none of us had an answer. I wanted to leave immediately. Every part of me screamed to get out of those woods. But Kevin, for some reason, stepped farther inside, muttering about hunters and weird people. He nudged one of the piles with his shoe, and that's when I saw it. Carved into the wooden wall, just above where the heaps were stacked, was a symbol. It looked like a circle with jagged lines radiating outward, like a sun drawn by a child. Only, this sun had something wrong with it. The lines weren't straight, they curled inward, like claws. Beneath it, smeared in something dark, were words. "Spring is for feeding." My skin went cold. Sarah grabbed my arm, whispering that we needed to go, and finally, everyone agreed. We stumbled out of the shack, shaken, trying to laugh it off, but failing miserably. Josh suggested it was some sick hunter's idea of a joke. Emily wanted to call the police, but none of us knew what to even say. Hey, we found a shack full of dead animals in the woods. It sounded insane. Still, we started back down the trail, walking fast, glancing over our shoulders every few seconds. That's when we noticed the footprints. At first, I thought they were ours, but the size was wrong. Too big, too wide, and they weren't old, either. The mud was still glossy, where the prints had been made. They trailed along the edge of the path, always just ahead of us, as if whoever made them had been walking the same way only minutes before. No one spoke now. We just walked faster. The silence in the woods grew heavy, broken only by the crunch of our shoes and the pounding of my heart. Every rustle of leaves made me flinch. I kept expecting to hear footsteps behind us, but all I could hear was our own. When we finally saw the river through the trees, I nearly cried in relief. We broke into a jog, desperate to get back to the blankets. The open space, anything that didn't feel like a trap. But when we reached the clearing, something was wrong. Our food was gone, not just disturbed or scattered by animals gone. The baskets were empty, the sandwiches, fruit, even the drinks we'd left behind, everything had been taken. The only thing left was a single flower laid neatly in the center of the blanket. A small white blossom, one I'd seen earlier, growing on the trail near the shack. Emily started crying. Sarah whispered that someone had been there while we were gone. Josh swore again, louder this time, and kept looking around like he expected someone to lunge out of the trees. We didn't wait to find out. We packed up what little we had and rushed back to the cars. The whole time I felt eyes on us, like someone was hiding just out of sight. Watching that night, none of us slept well. Sarah kept texting me, saying she swore she heard scratching at her window. Josh claimed he saw someone standing in the woods behind his house. Emily said she dreamed about the symbol, glowing in the dark. A week later, Kevin stopped coming to class. At first, we thought he was just skipping, but then the police came asking questions. His car had been found abandoned near the river, keys still in the ignition, door wide open, no sign of him. The rest of us never went back to that trail. We never spoke of the shack again, not even to the police when they asked if we'd noticed anything strange. Fear kept our mouths shut, but sometimes when spring returns and the flowers start to bloom, I smell it again, that sharp metallic scent that doesn't belong in the air, and I can't help but wonder if someone out there is still feeding. Spring break is supposed to be fun, road trips, parties, freedom from school. That's what I had in mind when my cousin Daniel invited me to spend a few days at his family's cabin in the mountains. He promised quiet hiking trails, a private lake, and a chance to just relax before exams. It sounded perfect. The cabin was old, built by Daniel's grandfather decades ago, but it stood strong on a hill surrounded by pines and budding dogwood trees. The first day felt like paradise. The air was cool but not cold. The ground was dotted with wildflowers, and the lake shimmered in the sun. We grilled food, fished off the dock, and stayed up late trading stories. But paradise didn't last. On the second day, we decided to hike up one of the trails that wound deep into the woods. It wasn't an official path, just one Daniel's grandfather had marked with ribbons years ago. We hiked for hours, climbing higher until the air grew thinner and the trees cast long shadows across the ground. That's when I noticed the carvings. At first they looked like initials, simple scratches in tree bark. But the deeper we went, the more we saw circles, spirals, symbols I couldn't recognize, carved with something sharp and deliberate. Some of them were fresh, the wood still pale where the bark had been stripped away. I asked Daniel if his grandfather had made them. He frowned and said no. His grandfather hated superstition. Probably just bored teenagers, he muttered. Though I could tell the explanation didn't sit well with him. By the time we turned back, the sun was low. The woods felt colder, and the once beautiful songs of birds had gone silent. I kept glancing over my shoulder, certain someone was following us, but the path stayed empty. When we reached the cabin, relief washed over me until we saw the door. It was open. We had locked it that morning. I remembered Daniel pulling the key from his pocket, turning the lock, and tugging on the handle to be sure. But now, the door swung slightly in the breeze, creaking softly. Maybe the wind, Daniel suggested, though his voice didn't sound convinced. We went inside cautiously. At first, nothing seemed wrong. The furniture was where we'd left it, our bags still piled in the corner. But then I noticed the fireplace. We hadn't lit it, yet ashes smoldered inside, thin curls of smoke rising into the chimney. Daniel cursed under his breath and checked every room. No one was there, but someone had been. Someone had sat in that cabin while we were gone, warmed themselves by the fire, and then vanished. That night, neither of us slept well. Every creak of the floorboards, every brush of branches against the roof made my chest tighten. Around 3 in the morning, I woke to the sound of footsteps on the porch. Slow, deliberate, circling the cabin. I shook Daniel awake. But by the time he grabbed the flashlight and opened the door, the sound was gone. The porch was empty. The next morning, we should have left. We both knew it. But Daniel didn't want to cut the trip short, and I didn't want to seem paranoid, so we stayed. That was our mistake. On the third day, we hiked again, this time staying closer to the cabin. The woods were quiet, too quiet, and I kept spotting those strange carvings. On trees, the same spirals and symbols. Some had small bundles of sticks tied beneath them, like crude offerings. When we got back, something was waiting for us. Laid neatly across the porch was a row of dead birds. 5 of them lined up wing to wing, their eyes dull, their tiny chests still. Beneath them, scratched into the wood of the porch, was a circle with jagged lines radiating outward, the same sun-like design I'd seen carved in the forest. Daniel wanted to believe it was just some prank, but a prank doesn't explain how someone knew we were staying there, or why they kept marking trees with the same disturbing symbol. That night, the footsteps returned. This time they didn't circle, they stopped right outside our bedroom window, lay frozen, staring at the dark glass, waiting for a face to appear. Instead, there came a scratching sound, slow, deliberate, like someone dragging a nail across the wood. When Daniel finally threw the window open, the night was empty. Only the sound of frogs by the lake. We packed the next morning, no arguments this time. Neither of us said it out loud, but we were terrified. We drove down the mountain road in silence, glancing in the mirrors as if expecting to see someone following us. When we finally got home, Daniel's father scolded us for leaving early. He thought we'd just scared ourselves. But weeks later, Daniel called me late one night, his voice shaking. He said he went back to the cabin with his dad to close it up for the season. They found new carvings on the trees, fresh ones, and on the cabin door, burned into the wood with something hot, was that same sun-like symbol, only this time, it wasn't alone. Beneath it were words, "Spring has begun." Spring in my hometown was always marked by 2 things: the return of green fields and the big Easter egg hunt the church hosted every year. Families came from all over, kids running through the grass with baskets, parents chatting in the sunshine. It was supposed to be safe, wholesome fun. But one year, when I was 16, something happened that made me see spring in a very different way. My younger sister Lily was 9 at the time. She was excited for the hunt, wearing her little pink dress and clutching a wicker basket. My mum volunteered with the other parents, so it fell on me to keep an eye on Lily while she searched for eggs. The field was huge, acres of tall grass just starting to turn green, dotted with wildflowers. Volunteers had scattered colorful, plastic eggs everywhere. Some were obvious, tucked under bushes, while others were harder to find. The event always felt magical, like a celebration of new life after winter. But that year, the grass was taller than usual, taller and thicker. It rustled in the breeze in a way that made it hard to tell if the movement was from the wind or something else. I stuck close to Lily as she darted back and forth, squealing each time she spotted a bright egg. Dozens of other kids were doing the same, their laughter carrying across the field. For a while, everything seemed normal. Then, Lily wandered farther from the group. I called after her, but she just giggled and kept running, convinced she'd spotted a golden egg hidden deeper in the grass. I followed, annoyed but not worried, until I saw her stop suddenly. She was staring at something on the ground. When I caught up, I froze. It wasn't a plastic egg. It was a real egg, large, speckled, and cracked open. The inside wasn't yellow, yolk though, it was dark, thick, almost black, and the smell that came from it made me gag. Lily wrinkled her nose. "That's gross," she said, dropping the egg she'd found and backing away. I wanted to leave immediately, but before I could grab her hand, we both heard it. A sound rising from the grass around us, a rustling, but not like the wind that moved in circles, deliberate, surrounding us. "Hello," I called, thinking maybe it was another kid, but no one answered. The grass shifted again, and for a split second, I thought I saw something pale duck out of sight. Too tall to be a child, too fast to be an adult moving normally. Lily clutched my arm, whispering, "I don't like this." Neither did I. I pulled her back toward the others, forcing a smile when we rejoined the crowd. But my heart wouldn't stop racing. I kept scanning the field, convinced I'd see that pale shape again. An hour later, the hunt ended. Kids compared baskets, parents clapped, prizes were handed out. Everyone seemed happy. Everyone except me, because, as we walked back to the car, I glanced once more at the field, and that's when I saw them. 3 figures, half hidden in the tall grass. They weren't volunteers. They weren't parents. They stood too still, too far away. Their skin looked pale, almost gray, and even from a distance, I could tell their faces were wrong, long stretched. Watching us, I blinked, and they were gone. For days I tried to convince myself I'd imagined it, but Lily wouldn't stop talking about the bad eggs. She told me she kept dreaming about them, cracking open to reveal something squirming inside. I didn't want to scare her, so I kept quiet. But the nightmares didn't stay in her head. One night, Near the end of April, Lily woke me by shaking my shoulder. Her face was pale, her eyes wide. She said there was something in her room. I followed her back, trying to calm her down. At first, the room looked normal. Her toys were scattered across the floor, her nightlight glowing softly. But then I noticed a window. It was open, and on the sill sat one of those eggs. It was cracked. Dark liquid oozed down the paint, dripping onto the floor. The smell was the same foul stench from the field. I slammed the window shut and threw the egg outside, my hands shaking. Lily begged me not to turn off the light. I stayed with her until morning, listening for every creak of the house. The next day we told Mum. She brushed it off, saying it was probably just a prank. But when we went outside to look, there were no eggshells in the yard. No mess, nothing, as if it had never been there. Weeks passed, the field grew taller, greener. Life went back to normal, at least for everyone else. But I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Every time we drove past that field, I scanned the grass, expecting to see those figures again. And one evening in May, I did. I was in the passenger seat while Mum drove home from the grocery store. Lily was asleep in the back. As we passed the field, I saw movement. 3 figures standing at the very edge of the grass, waiting. One of them lifted an arm, slowly, deliberately, and in its hand was a single white flower. Mum didn't see it. She just kept driving, but I couldn't look away until they disappeared in the distance. I never told Lily. She was already scared enough. But now, every spring, when Easter comes, and the fields turn green, I find cracked eggshells on our porch. Always the same dark, foul-smelling insides. And I know, deep down, that they're still out there, watching, waiting.